Welcome to the Front Seat Life podcast. This is Jessica Butts, your host and CEO and creator of Front Seat Life, where I help you be unapologetically who you are in your life, love, and business. Hello, Front Seat Lifers. It is Jessica Butts, and I am beyond excited for today. I am looking right across at one of my favorite people. She is a client. We've been working together about 18 months, 2 years. Yep. She's also my photographer. So everybody who's always seen all these pictures and are like, do you have a photographer walking around with you? I do not, but we do quarterly photo shoots. She's become a dear friend of mine. And this like badass 29 and 13th, her 30th birthday is just around the corner. Wise beyond her years, is here today to talk about some business stuff, but also from a place of authenticity and from a place of passion. So Mandi just wrote a damn book in 6 months. Girl, how are you feeling?
Well, to be honest, in the moment, I'm feeling a little under the weather.
I'm sorry.
No worries, but just don't mind my voice if it cracks a bit.
Yeah.
I'm feeling pretty amazing, though, this week, honestly. I received the books in hand last Friday, and it was a pretty surreal moment.
Yeah.
And the excitement has just been building since then with the launch coming this week. So, yeah, it's been pretty incredible. It's been a very interesting, challenging at times journey, but one that I will never forget, and I'm just beyond grateful for.
Yeah. So I wanted to have you on today to talk about a bunch of different things. Passion, resistance, a bunch of things. I'm not someone who brings someone on to just talk about their book. I want to keep it real, be authentic, just like you know how I like to be. And one of the very first things that I think I'm so drawn to want to have this conversation with you, and so that the listeners can learn, is your reason for doing this, your utter passion. So you wrote this book in 6 months, which is an unbelievable feat. I mean, I've written 2 books. It took me a hell of a lot longer than that. You have been purposeful and driven out of passion. So talk to me about that. So, and let me just tell everybody, I totally put Mandi on the spot this week. Her book was coming out. I've got a million things going on in my life. I wasn't super organized about this. Yesterday, I needed to fill in for the Front Seat Life community. I asked her to fill in. She was sick. I was like, oh my God, that was so good. Will you come on the podcast? So she's here at 8 a.m. being a total trooper. But I want you to talk a little bit about what you shared with the group yesterday, about the passion, why you were so drawn to do something like this in 6 months, and the push and the passion behind it.
Yeah. Also, thank you so much for the wonderful
You're
introduction
welcome.
earlier. That was amazing. So honestly, I think the idea behind yesterday's talk and passion really just was because this whole journey came full circle for me the moment that I held that book in my hands. And by the journey, I mean the journey I've been on for the last 1.5 years since I met you. When I walked into your event the very first time, I'm an introvert and I'm an INFJ. So for those people that may not know, that personality type is like 1% of the population, if not less. And I walked into that event much like I feel like I've been walking through the majority of my life, just kind of feeling invisible and feeling misunderstood and hidden. And so, I sat in the back of that room, hunched down in my chair for 3 days. And honestly, those 3 days changed my life. And for that, I'm so grateful. So grateful to you. I walked away from that event.
I'm already tearing up. So if you guys are hearing us laughing, we're looking at each other, but you can't see. And I'm already tearing up because I know there's so many people listening that are in the same spot you were. And to watch what you have done, I always have what I call A+ students, people who just fucking dive in. They just say, I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want to be invisible. I don't want to be passionless. I don't want to be hiding. I don't want to, whatever it is. For me, it was being uninspired or living incongruently.
Yeah.
And to watch you now, 18 months later, the woman that you are now versus the way that you're describing yourself walking into that is unbelievable. And there's so many people listening right now that I don't think give themselves enough credit that I'm not a Mandi, I'm not a Jessica. Yes, you are. We're no different than anybody else.
Right.
Everybody can do this. So I just wanted to already identify the fact that we're both tearing up a little bit. So keep going.
Yeah, no worries. No, it was honestly those 3 days. I think the thing that I got out of it was just hearing that it was okay to be me. And I felt like for the very first time in my life, I was surrounded by people and women and just energy that allowed me to kind of step out and be who I was and not be afraid to show that and not be afraid of judgment. And that was a trigger moment for me of realizing that I had been at that point working in my business as a photographer for three and a half years. And I had done all the things, right? I tried to photograph families and newborns and, couples, and I did all those things, and I think I did them pretty well. But there was always kind of this just hole inside me that I just felt was never fulfilled. And that was when I realized, at that event that I had been living for everybody else. And that's kind of something that I've done my entire life is just, and, it's part of who I am. It's part of my personality to want to give to others and be compassionate. And I love giving to others. But I felt like for the first time, I was like, I want to do something for me and I want to pursue my passion. And I felt like that was when I got permission to do so. And I just decided that day that I was going to ride that passion and I was going to embrace it and see where it took me. And I told my husband, things are going to change. I'm going on a journey and I'm going to figure this out. I want to figure out who I want to be and who I'm going to be. And it was a year and a half, which, everyone's journey looks different. Mine took about that amount of time. Some people's take longer, some people's not. But that's what it was for me. And when I fully was able to step into who I was and I discovered my love for personal branding and working with entrepreneurs and helping other entrepreneurs take that leap of faith into pursuing their passion, that was when the book came to me. And it was immediate. It was like I sat down to write and it just came out. And
so let's talk about that for a minute, because I want to go a bunch of different places in this podcast, in this episode. But one of the things is this is, we're doing a business summer. I'm basically calling it like summer school. I want people to just learn about their business, stay connected. And what you're talking about is a saying that I didn't make up, and I don't know where this originally came from, but niche is rich, broad is broke. And I know it's not niche, it's niche, but that doesn't rhyme. So people are always like, that's not how you say it. Niche is rich, broad is broke. And there is this thing that I watch entrepreneurs do all the time. So I do strategy days with people. I do all kinds of help and coaching with people. And one of the things is you've got to quit trying to serve everybody.
Yeah.
And there's that feeling of, and I know it clicked for you, when it's not quite there yet. Like you said, I'm doing photography for babies and weddings and couples and all the stuff. And then all of a sudden you find your niche. And tell us how that feels. Because when you figure out your niche, it's like, and it feels like flow. It feels like, oh my God, this is easy finally. And I've stepped into my thing. And I believe too, there's part of it that your mess is your message. And so for you, okay, you're already smiling. So go. So go.
No, so that saying, niche is rich, that was one of the sayings that you mentioned at the conference the very first time I saw you that stuck with me. And what I'm realizing now is that word niche for me really equates to purpose. And so I feel like when I found my niche, that was when I found my purpose. And that is powerful. I think that it's hard to put into words what that feels like. But when you step into it and you know it. Like in every cell in your body, you can just feel it. And the best way that I can describe it is that, and it's kind of what I was talking about a little bit yesterday, is like no matter what anyone says to you, no matter what comes your way, no matter what obstacles you're faced with, it's like, that this is what you're meant to do. You have no question in your mind that I don't care what other people say. I don't care what's happening to me. I'm going to push through and I'm going to go for this because this is what I'm meant to do. Mm-hmm. And it's just, there's, all those good feelings of excitement and energy and passion, and it's all the things. And I feel like that really is when you find what your purpose is.
Yeah. I kind of joke about this, and I don't mean this to be insensitive to addicts in any way or alcoholics, but I literally call it like my drug of choice. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is a high. In fact, I just had a little bit of a low. I went on my mastermind, and I was like, it was like I was high. I mean, it was just total drug of choice. I was like, this is what gives me energy. And then I came off of the roller coaster a little bit yesterday afternoon, was like, okay, wow. It's like I came off of a high, but that feeling of finding your passion, doing your passion, it's like a light bulb, a flow, a fire hose. It's energy. It's whatever that feeling is, jumping out of an airplane, doing a line of cocaine. Like, I don't know what it is for people, but it's that feeling of like, holy shit, this is the rush. And then I think what's interesting is what you're describing is then nothing will get in your way. So for me, and most of the listeners know that my story is that, I was uninspired. I was bored. I was like, what am I doing? This is the wrong marriage. This is the wrong business. And I literally did everything. I mean, I left my marriage. I quit my job. I went back to graduate school. I had literally had zero money. I mean, I look back on those days and I'm like, that was possibly not the smartest thing to do. Like, I don't know. I literally don't know how I paid my rent. I don't know what I was doing. I don't know what I did. Yeah, right.
You are following your purpose. And I honestly believe when you find it, when you follow it, God, I mean, for me, I'm a person of faith. Yes. I think God provides for you. He has a plan and he's got a purpose for your life. And when you're able to find it and fall into that path, those things they happen. They come along.
It's so good. And you're tearing up. I'm tearing up. And you're actually 100% right, because it is weird to look back on that and go, I mean, I didn't have a job. I was starting a therapy practice and I had one client who was paying me $10 a week. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure I didn't have a savings, and I walked away with my marriage with nothing. If you look at those facts, how did I do that? But what you're talking about is true. It's like faith, it's belief, it's purpose.
Yeah.
It's motherfucking determination too.
Yeah.
Can we have a moment for that? Like, It is just determination.
That's what I was going to say too. It's not that you can just step aside and things will fall into place. You have to also do the work. You have to be willing to commit and to put in the time and the effort. But if you're willing to give and to step into that purpose, I fully believe that God is there to walk right beside you and to help provide those things. And I have seen it time and time again with entrepreneurs that I work with. I am so blessed to be able to have such a deep connection with my clients, because shooting their personal brand requires that I get to know them and who they are. And I get to hear their stories. And for me, it is one of the most inspiring parts of my job to see the obstacles that people have overcome and what they've faced, and to hear their stories. And it's every single time when they had no idea how they were going to do it, something showed up. Mm-hmm. They were provided for, and they were doing the work to also, get themselves where they needed to be.
So let's go there. Let's go there, because I want you, I mean, I can talk all day long about how people need to be determined and how you need to do this and the structures and the systems and the singular focus. But as a client and someone who's done it herself, you wrote a book in 6 months. You're a freaking foster mom. You got a million things going on. You're a wife. You're still doing your day job. You're still a photographer. And yet there's people out there like, I don't know how to do this. And we make excuses, and we're going to end with resistance, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I want you to share with us what you had to do, the determination. I get the mindset. So this is what we've been talking about. Yeah. Having God on our back, the purpose, the passion, all of that. But then there is also the action piece. Mm-hmm. So tell us, sister, how did you do this? What did you do? You wrote a gorgeous, by the way, the book is sick beautiful. She just got to my house and gave me the book. It's ridiculous and beautiful, and it's a workbook, and you need to get it. We'll tell you at the end how you can get it. But tell us, how did you do this?
Honestly, well, so first of all, being a J, I'm very organized and full of structure, which I think is a huge part of what allowed me to get here. But like you said, I'm a mom and a wife, and I'm running a business, and so I didn't have a lot of time. And for me, it was really just getting honest about myself about when can I make time in my schedule to do this? Because if this is important to me, then I need to make that time. And that was requiring me to say no to a few other things. It required me getting up early. I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning, some mornings, to write for 2 hours before my kiddo got up. It was a long couple months. But I also knew that I saw that end. I saw the vision at the end. And for me, when I would, my alarm would go off at 4:30 and I didn't want to roll out of bed, that's what I would picture. And it was just all the much more motivation to get up and to do it. And I knew it was temporary. I knew that, it was a temporary commitment, but something that I desperately wanted to do because I truly believe in what I produced. And I wanted to get that out into the world, and I wasn't willing to let stuff get in my way. So you figure it out. You figure out what else can you say no to for a few months to make room for something else.
People, listeners, how many juicy nuggets were in there? I mean, I'm over here nodding like my head's about to fall off. Like, so, right? Is she just wise beyond her years? Like, this is incredible, Mandi. And I mean, of course, hopefully I've taught you some of this stuff, but some of this is just innate in who you are. But what I'm hearing is determination, passion, purpose, mindset. So this is one of the things I talk about with people all the time, is not living 5 minutes in front of your face. So if you're a P, that's a little more difficult. Mandi and I are both what I would consider super J's. She was 12 minutes early to my house today. So these are just examples of like being super uber J and being super planned and organized. But then the other thing that I'm hearing, which is a big one, is when you have something that you're really, really determined to do, you will set boundaries. You will say no to things. You will cut things out of your life. I don't believe in, like, obviously cutting your friends out of your life for sure. But, going and doing like lunches in middle of the day. And I mean, when I started my business, I remember telling people like, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not driving to meet you for coffee. I'm not going, on long lunches Monday through Friday. Like, I am here to work, and I need to learn how to compartmentalize and determine what is most important to me. And I remember thinking about my business at the time, and both of the books that I've written, and I'm assuming you feel the same way, is that they were my babies. And so when you have a newborn, which I've never had babies, but you have one, they take up all your time and your attention, and you give it everything. Give he or she everything. And you say no to things. And people, for whatever reason, don't do that with their businesses or a passion project. So tell us a little bit about how you set some boundaries for yourself and for other people. What kind of conversation did you have to have with your husband or people in your life?
First of all, I just want to make a comment about something you said about people in their business not setting those boundaries. I think, interestingly enough, and this is just my perspective, but I think a lot of times when we're not able to set those boundaries, it's because we haven't yet found our purpose and what we're really supposed to be doing.
That's so true.
And I think that I say that only because I think it's a good check-in with yourself. If you're an entrepreneur or a business owner and you're finding that you're not able to set boundaries, or you're feeling like, well, I'll push that off till later, or I don't really need to get up now. I think those are just key signs to check in. Like I said, check in with yourself, because if you're feeling that way, I think that there's something out of alignment. And I think that there's some just exploring to do, because I truly do think that when you find that purpose, that passion, you will set those boundaries.
And you will do anything, right? This is so interesting, because I completely agree. And I think your life is an example of that. My life is an example of that. It doesn't mean it's less painful. So let's have that conversation. I don't think it's less painful to set those boundaries, to potentially end those relationships, to do the work, but you just become laser focused, right? It's like you will do anything to get the book out into the world because you know that it's going to be of service. And I know for you and for me, by the way, if anybody thinks you're becoming a millionaire writing a book, you're absolutely not. Like, you don't make any money by writing a book. It is a passion project. It is about putting what you love and your passion into the world. I mean, it's just not making you a millionaire, that's for sure. And so that dedication, that laser focus, you're right, is absolutely, it kind of trumps everything.
Yeah. And I mean, I think honestly, sometimes when you step into things like this, into a new passion project or start stepping into your purpose, it can almost become more painful and challenging in the form of resistance, which I know we are going to talk about in a little bit. But so I'll share more on that then. But yeah, I do think that there's kind of an extra level of challenges sometimes that you're met with instead of making things easier. But speaking, to the boundaries specifically that you asked me about, you know, I had to have a conversation with my husband, obviously, and just tell him like, hey, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm looking to do. And this is what I need from you. And also, I wanted to make sure that we had a communication around what do you need from me during this process? How can we make this work for our relationship? Because he's also working on a project of his own. And so for us, it was finding that balance of giving each other time to work so that neither one of us was feeling like the other was sort of taking over. And so that was a big conversation that we had to have. I had to set, some boundaries just with phone calls with friends. Instead of going out super late on a Saturday night, I would head to bed a little bit early so I could get up Sunday to work. I would say probably another boundary for me, and a big one that it really took me some time to kind of sort through, was with my foster son. As I started writing this book, he got to the age where he was very much no longer napping all the time and had so much energy and was running around. And I had to make the decision to find some daycare for him for a little while because, when he was a newborn, it was easy. I could do my work while he was sleeping next to me. But the more that he got active, I needed some help, and I needed to create some space for myself to get my work done. And so, for me, that looked like partial daycare, but that was still a big change from where we were at. So those were just decisions that I needed to make to carve out room for this project.
Yeah. I'm actually going to do an episode on compartmentalization, in particular when I'm in Maui. I felt like it was a good time to literally do it. I'm bringing my podcast equipment. I'm going to be there in a couple weeks with my mom. And I know you pretty well. I don't think you're quite as good at compartmentalization as you would like to get to.
Oh, no, I've got work.
Okay, so we all do. Trust me.
No, I've got work.
For me, and I'd like, for you to share a little bit about this. For me, learning about compartmentalization has been, and I guess this is a teaser for that whole episode, has been a lifesaver, not a game changer, a lifesaver for me in terms of when I am working, giving that 100%. And when I am with my partner, giving him 100%. And right now, sitting across from you, giving you 100%. And when I'm with myself, giving myself 100% and my sleep 100%, instead of this epidemic that we're in right now of giving 10 different things, 10% of our energy and doing a pretty shitty job at 10 of those things. And I'm curious if this has shifted for you at all in terms of being a foster mom and being a wife and being a photographer and writing a book. I mean, there is something about the structure that has to go into our lives to be I think, effective entrepreneurs, but also have a personal life, to have self-care, and to be in relationships. Because otherwise, I mean, I always joke about this, and I hope this isn't offensive to anyone, but I always joke that there's times where I would love to have a job that I leave the job. And to me, that job is a grocery bag checker. It's so dorky, but I just have, I watch them and I go, I bet they don't bring stress from work home. Like, they put your bags, you put your groceries in a bag, God bless them, and you're done. And you go home and you're like, I'm going to leave that behind. But when you're writing a book or you're marketing or you're on social media, you're doing this stuff, it's constant in your brain, but it can also ruin your life.
Yeah.
I mean, it can ruin your life. So is there anything that you have learned during this process, and it's okay if there hasn't been, but about compartmentalization that you can share with us?
Yes, absolutely. And I was laughing as you're talking about the grocery bagger because I totally used to be one of those in college.
Oh my God, that's so funny. How do I have never known that? Because I've joked about that.
I used to get up at 5 a.m. in college to go bag groceries in the morning before school.
Hence your good work ethic. Yeah. There you go.
But no, that's totally what it was. I would go to work and then I would leave and I was like, who cares? Yeah. And yet you're so right. Some days you feel like, oh man, if I could just go back to that.
Oh my God. Talk about compartmentalization.
Right.
Oh, so good.
Yeah. But so speaking of, compartmentalizing and oh gosh, that is such a good topic, honestly, to ask me about, because if I'm being honest, I was a hot mess when I first started writing this book. So I've definitely learned a lot through the process. I think, just being a woman in general, it's really challenging to compartmentalize sometimes. I think we're just so all over the place. And I know, for me, and I know this is something that's pretty common among a lot of women is, you switch from one thing to another, but that last thing still carries with you. You don't just leave it. Yeah. And so it's been a lot of, through this, especially last 6 months, learning to retrain my brain almost, or to check in with myself and say, like, hey, you are pulling all this weight. You got to let it go.
Yeah.
You need to focus. And honestly, when I first started writing this, I was a hot mess. My marriage, I love my husband dearly, and
amazing.
We're awesome, and our relationship is wonderful. But I could even tell, just our communication, the way that we interacted was starting to get just like a little bit, I don't know, just disjointed, I guess. And I could just feel his energy shifting because I was so in my head when I was with him, when I was with my foster son, I could just tell I was thinking about work or thinking about the book, or I'd be like, oh, I got to go write this down. And you could feel the energy in every place in my life, shifting, where it was this is just icky. Mm-hmm. This just does not feel good. I'm not present. And when I started to feel all of that, I definitely was okay, we need to refocus. And that's when I did some of that compartmentalizing, and I am still working on it.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It's hard.
It is not easy, but definitely when I shifted my mindset to thinking when I'm in this moment, I need to focus on this. And when I'm in this moment, I need to focus on this. It is hugely impacted, I think, my productivity, just the happiness levels of myself, my husband, my foster son, my family, everybody around me. It just flows.
Yeah. I struggle with this in my life too. There's people in my life that I know struggle with this. And I know the difference between being with someone when they're giving me their full attention versus when they're all over the place. They're on their phone and they're doing this and they're on social media and they're whatever. And you're just sitting across from them what is happening? Am I important to you at all versus them giving you their all? I recently had someone question me. So I'm in a new relationship and fairly new. I guess it's been 6 months now, but it still feels fairly new. For somebody who's married for 20 years, it still feels new. And when we're together, that's all we do. We're not on social media. We're not taking a lot of pictures. I have people oh, you guys still together? I'm yes, we're just not out there. But there is something new for me about being able to compartmentalize in that way that I'm actually very proud of. And it's been interesting to have people question that, or what feels like questioning or judging it, because we live in a society, right, that is so programmed to do so many different things at once versus just being present. I certainly don't mean this judgmentally, but seeing, parents at the playgrounds and they're on their phone and their kids are playing, and I'm what the fuck is going on? You are never going to get these moments back. Or when you're with your spouse and there's something more interesting on Facebook than the person sitting across from you. We are in a really, really interesting time in our lives right now, that there is so much importance on our phones and people needing us in this exact freaking moment versus us learning how to set some boundaries.
Yeah.
I'm about to post this quote that I got off of Pinterest, and I'll give credit where credit's due when I figure out what it is. But it says something like, you can be in love and kindness and still set boundaries like a motherfucker. And I was like, I love that because
Yes.
you can still be, I mean, I'm all about love and kindness. I mean, it's totally my front seat, but it's also like learning how to set boundaries with your business, with people in your life. And I think in order to really get what we want out of life, we will have to learn how to set boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Listening to you talk about that makes me just think about my foster son. And right when all this life-changing stuff started happening for me was also the time I became a foster mom. And he has taught me a lot about the importance of time and focus on the people that you're with when you're with them. Because, you know, we're in a situation right now that we just don't know. We don't know what we have for time.
That is incredible.
And every time I look at him, I can't help but feel like I just need to spend that time with him. And I need to really just soak in all the valuable time and the precious moments that I possibly can with him. And that lesson that I've learned from him has translated to other places in my life. And I think that's also what's contributed to setting some of these boundaries. And it's like my husband and I, for example, when we got my foster son, we had not been on a date and gone out as a couple for about 14 months almost.
Oh, my sister.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
Because I was working and he was working and we had a new kid and it was like everything was coming first. Then my book came along and that came first. And that's when I say, you know, like when we realized, I realized things were in chaos. It was like time to set boundaries. We said, you know, like, that's it. We're doing date days.
Yeah.
And we put it in our calendar. I literally sat down on January 1st of this year and put all of them in our calendar. And I just said, we're doing them. And that for me is a big thing too, you know, actually physically scheduling the time for things.
Because otherwise it doesn't happen, right? It won't happen. In fact, I was with my man and you were with your man and we happened to be at the Post Hotel in Leavenworth, Washington at the same time. And that was a big deal for you guys to go away, leave your foster son at home. And it is those kinds of moments where that is compartmentalization. And again, we live in this world of social media and all of this stuff. And instead of like always just putting it out there, it's like being present in that moment. And I know that I've learned to do that as I've gotten older, but you're only freaking, you know, it makes me a little jealous, but you know, you're not even 30 yet. Your birthday's next week, but as a 29 and again, 12, 13, it's pretty impressive. So let's go into, I think we could keep talking about this forever, but let's go into talk about resistance. I want to get into resistance. So Stephen Pressfield talks about resistance, and I know that you've experienced a lot of it. I have certainly experienced it. I'm experiencing it right now. I'm doing a book club on Facebook, and I was talking about baby in the back seat this morning, and ironically, I woke up totally baby in the back seat, and I thought, well, this is going to be an interesting day. I've got 1 million clients and a podcast and a Facebook episode, and resistance shows up in all kinds of different ways. So when you are stepping into your purpose, and Stephen Pressfield talks about this, anytime he did a podcast episode with Oprah on one of her Super Soul Sundays, and he describes it as anytime we are trying to do good in this world. You could think of that as God's work or, you know, stepping into the light. Anytime we're trying to do good, build our marriage, be a foster mom, write a book, put goodness out into the world, be love and kindness, be whatever, like put good into the world. We are met with resistance. You and I are women of faith. I believe that is the devil at work. And resistance shows up in the weirdest ways. And I have learned how to play with that a little bit, to understand it, to see it for what it is. Although I do need to have conversations. You and I were in the kitchen and I had a moment like, oh, I realize this fight I'm having right now is a total resistance. But tell us, sister, because you have a lot of how the devil is showing up, how resistance is showing up as you're trying to put this passion-filled project into the world.
Yeah, I mean, Man, honestly, we could be here for a long time if I started listing everything that's been happening. Speaking, specifically to writing this book, it's just been, man, all over the place. I mean, everywhere in my life. Like, for instance, stuff with my foster son. The moment I decided to write this book, things shifted. Things shifted with him, things shifted with the case. And it's caused a lot of extra to be happening, just required more energy from me. And when it comes to the book itself, it's like just the process. I mean, for anyone who's written a book or anyone that wants to, like, just please know that you're going to hit a million road bumps.
Yeah.
It's like, every part of the process. Some days it was like I had time scheduled and it was like, oh, I'm going to get up at 4:30 today and write. Oh, and then for 3 days in a row, my son decides to wake up crazy early in the morning and I don't get my time to write. We were just talking how these last few days, my book is launching this week. I've got a million things to do.
And then I added 2 more.
It's all good. I am so grateful for those. But, my husband left last week for a trip. So I started single parenting, and the morning that I woke up and my husband was gone, my foster son woke up and had a double ear infection. And let me tell you, if you've not had a kid with an ear infection, it's not fun, let alone having 2 ears infected. So he's been in pain. He's not been, able to go to daycare. So I've had him with me all the time. And then I got sick, and I've really been struggling to get over this illness. I have a photo shoot later today for my book, and I woke up this morning and I've got a popped blood vessel in my eye.
From coughing so much.
From your coughing.
Yeah. Resistance.
Yeah, and then, when it comes down to the details of like the printing and the book design, and I was just even telling you this morning, it's like we did a grammatical check on the book, but then we went through the book probably, I would say, 6 more times, and every time there was something else that we found, or something need to be shifted, or I sent my book off to the printer and literally the next day found out we had to change the title of the book.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I haven't heard that one.
So it wasn't a big change. It was one word, but we had to change it. And so it was like, okay, I hope that this didn't get printed yet, because otherwise here I am, out money or, reshifting the printing process. And I was like, I don't know if that's going to push my delivery date back. So it's just all the things. But you know what? I continued to just push through and persevere. And when things are meant to happen, they will.
And let's end there then, because I feel like this is the full circle of this. Everyone's met with resistance. Mm-hmm. I talk about this around The Big Leap. So Gay Hendricks wrote this amazing book called The Big Leap. And I talk about that. He talks about the ego and that it's there to keep you safe. Stephen Pressfield talks about it as resistance. I feel like it's the same thing. It is the universe's or the devil's way of keeping you small, keeping you safe, keeping you complacent. The devil doesn't want good things. And so resistance shows up whenever we're trying to do good stuff. You notice the devil never shows up when you're laying on your couch eating pizza, watching Netflix. Yep. He never shows up then.
Right?
Never. It's always when we're out trying to do good shit in the world. Yep. And so resistance is about identifying it and then knowing that that's what it is. Yeah. So you could have said, oh, well, now, my foster son, I can't do this. I got to quit this. I can't do this. I'm going to give this up. Or, oh my God, I better cancel my photo shoot because I have, a popped blood vessel. Yeah. Or I'm sick, so I better not take this opportunity to be on Jessica's podcast. We can make excuses all day long when resistance shows up. And I actually think the devil's going, ha ha! I got you.
Right?
I got you.
Yeah.
And so let's pull this full circle, because I'm pretty sure I already know the answer to what you're going to say to this is, how do we keep pushing through? Because there's a saying that I also didn't come up with: new level, new devil. Every single time we push to a new level, I'm doing it in my business right now. You're doing it in your business. Yeah. Whenever we're pushing through to a new level, a new devil shows up and says, I don't think so. Yeah. I don't think you really want that. Let me throw this wrench in there. Let me throw this in there. Let me do this. Let me do that. And what resistance is wanting is for you to go, you're right. You're right. I should just give up.
Yep.
You're right. My life is stupid. You're right. I'm not very smart. You're right. I'm not pretty enough to do this. You're right. All the stuff. So tell us, girl, how do you keep pushing through? And I think it's the whole thing of why you wrote this book.
Yeah. So first off, though, I do want to just say and make it known, it's not like going through this process and being met with resistance. It's like every time you make the right decision to say, forget that. And that you don't have negative thoughts sometimes because we all do.
Yeah.
We are all human, and I think it's part of the process, and you do get worn down and you get tired, and there are times where you're just like, that's it. I'm throwing my hands up in the air. I'm done. Like, you have those moments, but then you have to get quiet, and you have this feeling sort of come over you when you just sit and refocus and you remember why you're pushing so hard, why you started pursuing this in the first place. And, it does all come back to that purpose that we talked about at the beginning. I think that the reason why, I wrote this book is because I think it's very difficult sometimes to get quiet. It's very difficult, especially in our society, to kind of to stop ourselves, to give ourselves time, to slow down. And it's difficult to know what questions to ask. It's hard to figure out sometimes where to get started. It's like there's so much out there. There's so many messages from social media, from friends, from family telling you, like, do this, do that. You should do this. You should do that. There's, all the different jobs that you have during the day that you need to focus on. And it's a lot of chaos. And so when you're an entrepreneur looking to start a business, or you're trying to find your purpose or your passion, it's like, how do I get started in that? And I think sometimes it's just nice to have sort of like a roadmap, of like, I don't want to have to think about what are the questions I have to think about. Like, I want to just know, what are these questions? And through my own just personal journey, and then, my journey of working with you, and my journey as an entrepreneur and working with so many other entrepreneurs, it's like all these pieces of what are these questions and what is this process really started to fall into place for me. And it's something that I constantly talk with my clients about, and I educate clients on. And I want everybody else, like anybody that has a dream, that has a desire to figure out their purpose and their passion, who has a desire to run a business, I want them to have the chance. And I want to encourage them to take the time and make the moments to get quiet, to settle down, to allow themselves to be open to possibilities. And that's what this book is about. This book, I specifically structured it for busy people, because that's what we all are. This book is divided into 30 days, and every day you get a little piece of content and you've got some homework. And the point is that you can set aside a certain amount of time every day to do this work, and you don't have to try to do it all at once. You don't have to do it in the morning at 4:30. You don't have to do it at 10 o'clock at night. Like, whatever makes sense for you, that's when you can do it. But it's just about making the commitment to setting aside even 30 minutes a day. And if you are truly committed to wanting to fulfill your passion and your purpose, then you will make that commitment. You will find that time. And I just want to help guide you.
Yeah, and you bring up two really good points, and then I want you to tell people where they can get the book, is that entrepreneurship in particular is hard, but I think just being a leader is hard. Being a leader in your life is hard. And it takes a couple of things. It takes long-term vision, because if you don't have the long-term vision, you're going to give up. There's absolutely no doubt about it. I would love to know the statistics of that. Like, if you're just not going to put in the work because it's too hard. But you have to have the long-term vision, and then you have to have an action plan, which is what your book is. It's an action plan to get specific. So when I work with my clients, it's 90-day goals, and it's getting very clear about what you need to do structurally, 90-day goal-wise, your book, an outline of how do you get clear about where you want to go. And you can't have either or, you have to have both. That is my personal opinion. You cannot just do the day-to-day without the long-term vision, and you can't have a long-term vision without an action plan. So tell them where you can buy this amazing, beautiful book. Mine's in the kitchen. It's gorgeous. I have to say I'm in it. It's very fun to be in someone else's book.
Yeah.
So tell us where we can find it.
Yeah, so you can find it on my website. It's www.mandi, which is Mandi, Ann.com. So mandiann.com, and the book is available there. It actually did the website launch yesterday, so the books are live.
Beautiful.
Yeah, but the book party and the big launch is happening this weekend.
Awesome.
You can find me also on Instagram at the Mandi Ann, and the reason I point that out is because this entire week, in celebration of the book launch and my birthday, I'm doing giveaways. Yay. I'm going to have a few more things coming up next week as well for my birthday. So lots of fun goodies on there.
Oh,
and
so good.
Yeah.
So good.
The book will be available on Amazon shortly. We're working on finishing getting that account up.
Great. So. And just one more thing before we close and I say thank you is Mandi has brought up this event, this conference that she went to multiple times. For those of you who are interested, I am doing it again this year. We're changing it up. It's going to be really, really just off the charts, different, amazing. I'm calling it the non-event event because I'm really fucking sick of events where you're on the stage and it's the hoopla and let's dance and let's do all this bullshit. And I just want it to be about connection. So it's actually going to be a smaller event and it's a non-event event. No hoopla, more connection is what I'm calling it.
That.
So no stage. I'm going to be with you, walking around, touching your shoulders, like being with you. And it's going to be September 20th and 21st in the Seattle area at the Seattle Sheraton. So stay tuned for that. Mandi, thank you. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being a total badass. Congratulations. Happy early birthday.
Thank you.
All the things.
Thank you so much.
And sit in this and enjoy it. For those of you who would love to contact Mandi, go check her out on Instagram. You can always leave wonderful comment on Instagram, or not on Instagram, there too, but on iTunes, and leave us a review. We'd love to read those. So thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, I have a confession to make. I have a new obsession, and that obsession is reading your ridiculously wonderful, loving, amazing reviews on iTunes. I love them. None of this even matters without all of you. So as a thank you, each week I will be reading one review on air and calling out your review with your name or your iTunes handle. So here's how it's going to go. You're going to go to Instagram and follow me at Front Seat Life. When you hear your name called out on the podcast, you are going to send me a DM with your address and say, "Oh my gosh, you just read my review." And I or my team will be sending you some Front Seat Life swag. We've got books and we've got tank tops and we've got journals and we have these adorable pink swells. So we will be choosing from the goodie bag and sending it out as a thank you. So thank you, thank you, thank you in advance. And I am so deeply honored to have the opportunity to thank you back. All right, everybody, here is today's review. By the way, I absolutely love getting these. As I just mentioned, it's a small obsession of mine. I love going in each week and seeing your comments and reactions and your amazing stories. So here is today's review. It is from Crixton, Crixtn, and she writes, "Amazing," with a whole bunch of A's in it and 5 stars. Thank you so much. She writes, or he writes, "I really love I found you. I have a lot of fun listening to you, but at the same time, I learn a lot. I'm always sharing you at my Instagram stories because it's necessary for everyone to learn this magic. Thank you for sharing your time and knowledge with us." Thank you, Chris. I so appreciate these messages more than I can say. So again, we will be sending you out some swag. Go over to Instagram, Front Seat Life, DM me there, say, "Oh my gosh, you just read my review," and we will lovingly mail you out some Front Seat Life swag. So thank you so much. From the bottom of my heart, truly, thank you so much for listening. I know that you have a ton of options, and the fact that you are taking time to listen to the Front Seat Life podcast means absolutely everything to me. If you're interested in learning more about the Front Seat Life way of life in the community, there's a couple ways that you can do that. First is always starting with your personality assessment tool. It's available on my website at jessicabutts.com. It's totally free, and it will help you figure out your personality type so you'll have some idea of what we're talking about. Next is, if you're interested in hiring me for a keynote or some coaching or strategy days or the fabulous and amazing Front Seat Life community, you can find out all about all of that at jessicabutts.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.